You ever have one of those moments where someone flips out so hard, you just have to sit back and wonder if they really thought things through? That's exactly what happened when I decided to repaint my ranch. A fresh coat of paint, a new color, that actually matched the natural vibe of the land, and suddenly the HOA president was banging on my gate like the world was ending. She didn't call, didn't ask, just showed up screaming about rules, codes, and how I needed immediate approval from the board. But here's the kicker. She didn't know that I actually own the entire HOA lot. Yeah, the land their precious HOA sits on. Mine. Every square inch of it. It all started pretty simple. My ranch needed some upkeep, so I thought I'd give it a new looks, something classic, but bold. Nothing crazy, just a darker earth tone to blend better with the surroundings. A couple days into the paint job, I notice her SUV creeping by real slow. Then, boom, she storms up the driveway like she owns the place, yelling about fines and legal action. She starts throwing around threats about violating HOA regulations and how she's going to report me to the board. But the way she froze. When I calmly told her, I am the board, ... priceless, see. What she and most of the other residents don't realize is that I purchased the entire HOA plot years ago in a quiet sale. Long story, it's all legal, all recorded. And now, they're technically leasing the land their homes sit on from me. So when she came at me with rules and regulations, she was barking up the wrong tree. But that little meltdown, it was just the beginning. You won't believe what she tried to pull next once she realized she had no real power over me or my ranch. Stick around, because it only gets messier from here. To really understand how things got to this point, you've got to know a little about how I ended up in this neighborhood in the first place. A few years back, I bought this stretch of land on the edge of town. It was peaceful, had a beautiful ridge view, and plenty of room for livestock. Over time, developers started creeping in, and before I knew it, they built a little suburban community right near the edge of my property. I didn't think much of it until they formed an HOA. Now, most folks think HOAs are there to keep the neighborhood clean and organized, which sounds great on paper. But this one, it quickly turned into a nightmare. Constant letters, passive-aggressive emails, complaints about everything from my fencing to the smell of my compost pile. Even though I was there long before the first house was built, but I kept quiet, let them talk. What they didn't know was that the original land deal gave me ownership of the entire HOA common area. The green belts, walking paths, that community garden they're so proud of, it's all technically mine. I figured as long as no one bothered me, I wouldn't bother them, but the president, let's call her Diane, had other plans. She came in with this big energy, acting like she ran the world. She'd send notices about my barn being too visible from the road or my tractor being an eyesore. I laughed it off at first, but it kept getting worse. Then the paint job. That was her tipping point. She had no clue what kind of situation she was stepping into when she tried to flex HOA authority over my ranch. And when she found out the truth that she was technically trespassing just by walking through the neighborhood park, things really started to spiral. After Diane's little outburst on my property, I figured she'd back off once she learned the truth, but no, she doubled down. The next morning, I found a fresh HOA violation notice duct-taped to my gate. No envelope, just a wrinkled sheet threatening fines for unauthorized exterior modifications and failure to comply with neighborhood aesthetics. Mind you, my ranch isn't even in the HOA jurisdiction. But that didn't stop her from trying to throw her weight around. It became clear this wasn't just about paint. Diane was used to controlling everything: people's yard signs, mailbox, colors, even what kind of flowers they planted. And when she couldn't control me, it must have made her snap. She started dragging other neighbors into it, trying to stir up some kind of revolt. I started noticing people driving by slower than usual, A few even stopped to take pictures of my ranch. At first, I thought it was just curiosity. But then, I overheard one neighbor say, "He's ruining our property values." That's when I realized Diane was trying to turn the whole HOA against me, what she didn't expect. Though, was that not everyone was on her side? A couple folks who had lived in the neighborhood before the HOA was even formed started reaching out, quietly. One elderly man, Carl, came by with a folded map and an old file box. Turns out he had records from the original land deeds proof that the HOA had made some serious assumptions when they claimed those common areas. He said Diane ignored him when he brought it up years ago. While that was going on, I started getting strange emails from a concerned resident warning me to comply or face consequences. No name, just threats. And then just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, I caught someone sneaking near my barn one night, flashlight in hand. No one wants to admit it, but this wasn't just about rules anymore. Something deeper was brewing. After that night, things started to spiral faster than I expected. I set up some cameras around the barn and the edges of my property just to see who was lurking around after dark. A few nights later, I caught clear footage of someone sneaking in wearing a hoodie, moving cautiously but definitely trying to avoid being seen. I couldn't make out the face, but whoever it was, they seemed like they knew the layout well. When the tension really hit me, this wasn't just some random troublemaker. This was personal. Meanwhile, Diane didn't stop with her harassment. She sent out another HOA newsletter filled with thinly veiled jabs about uncooperative neighbors and protecting our community standards. I could feel the divide growing. Some neighbors were whispering about lawsuits, about forcing me to fix what they saw as a problem. I heard rumors of legal counsel being consulted, all because I repainted my ranch the way I wanted. But they didn't understand that the land, the whole lot, was legally mine. The irony was thick, but it didn't ease the pressure, the concern. Resident emails kept coming, more aggressive each time. I couldn't tell if it was Diane, one of her allies, or someone else entirely. Every message felt like a countdown to something worse. My peaceful retreat had turned into a battlefield, and I was bracing for what might come next. One afternoon, as I was checking the fence line, I saw Diane walking through the common area, again without permission. Of course. I called her out, and she just smiled, acting like she was untouchable. But I had something for her. Now those old maps and documents Carl had shared, evidence that could change everything. I was ready to confront her, to prove who really owned the land. But deep down, I knew this showdown was only the calm before the storm. The next few days felt like waiting for a thunderstorm to hit. Every phone ring, every knock on the door, my heart jumped. The whole neighborhood was on edge, and so was I. Whatever Diane planned next, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be easy or quiet. Just when I thought I had a handle on the whole situation, something happened that threw everything into chaos. A few days after confronting Diane with the land deeds, I got a call from the county records office. Turns out, there was a glitch, or maybe more like a hidden clause, in the property documents that no one had noticed before. A part of the HOA lot, the section Diane claimed was common ground, was actually under a separate trust. And guess what? That trust was controlled by none other than Diane herself. Suddenly, the whole power dynamic flipped. I realized Diane had been playing a much deeper game all along. While I owned the majority of the land, she had legal control over a crucial piece that connected several properties, basically the key to the neighborhood's access points. If she decided to block it, she could effectively cut off traffic or utilities. It was a move straight out of a drama, and I hadn't even seen it coming. This new revelation raised the stakes exponentially. It wasn't just about paint anymore, or petty HOA squabbles. It was about control, leverage, And who really called the shots on this land? Diane had been quietly tightening her grip behind the scenes, and I was suddenly staring down a much bigger problem than just a painted dispute. The neighbors started whispering even more, and the tension was palpable. Some looked at me like I was a threat, others seemed afraid of what Diane might do next. Meanwhile, Diane herself was acting bolder, like she knew she held the trump card. Her emails turned more aggressive, and the concerned resident messages took on a sharper edge. I couldn't ignore the feeling that this was no longer just about ownership, was about a showdown that could change the whole community forever. The peaceful ranch I once loved felt like a powder keg, ready to explode. And with Diane controlling that one piece of land, I was stuck in the middle, waiting for the next move that could push everything over the edge. The tension had been building for weeks, and I knew the next confrontation with Diane was inevitable. I gathered all the documents, the land deeds, the maps from Carl, and the surprising trust paperwork the county had uncovered and prepared to face her head-on. I invited her to a meeting at my ranch, hoping to settle things before they spiraled out of control. When she arrived, her usual confident smirk was gone, replaced by a sharp edge in her eyes. I laid everything out calmly, showing her the legal facts that proved I owned the entire HOA lot, including the majority of the common areas. Then, I confronted her about the trust that gave her control over that critical piece of land. She didn't deny it. Instead, she tried to use it as leverage, threatening to block access and make life difficult for the neighborhood unless I backed down on my paint job and other violations. But I was ready. I had spoken to a lawyer who confirmed that, while Diane had control over the trust, there were strict legal limits to what she could do. Any attempt to block access without cause would be challenged, and could even void her control. The real surprise came when Carl stepped forward. He revealed that years ago, the trust had a clause allowing me to buy out Diane's control at any time, something Diane had conveniently ignored. I exercised that option then and there, handing over a fair price to settle it once and for all. Diane's grip on the neighborhood suddenly slipped away. But the unexpected twist: as Diane packed up to leave, she dropped a thin folder on my porch. Stack of documents suggesting that the HOA itself might be on shaky legal ground, with multiple property lines contested and records incomplete. It was a warning that the fight for the land and control might not be over yet. For now, though the paint job stayed, the ranch was mine, and Diane's reign was over. But the quiet before the next storm felt heavy. What she left behind hinted at deeper challenges ahead, and I knew this was just the beginning of a much larger story.